Could you have been fooled by a facade of perfection? Dive into a gripping true crime documentary about Abril Pérez Sagaón, a model of success and motherhood, whose dream life masked a nightmarish reality of abuse and betrayal. What do you fear more? The hidden dangers within a seemingly ideal life, or the threats that come when the truth is revealed? Join us as we unravel a story of deception, survival, and the desperate quest for justice. Are you prepared to look beyond the surface? Abril Pérez Sagaón entered the world in 1971, nestled in the vibrant city of Monterrey, Nuevo León, Mexico. Born to María del Socorro Sagaón, Abril was raised alongside her two siblings, Javier and Annie. From a young age, her mother tirelessly ensured that all three children received the best education possible, fostering an environment of security and opportunity. Abril, showing an innate knack for entrepreneurship and learning, aimed high with aspirations of attaining higher education and economic independence, setting her sights on a life of comfort and achievement. As she matured, Abril blossomed into a disciplined, intelligent, and vivacious individual. Known for her kindness and compassion, she was always eager to lend a helping hand, winning the hearts of many. Her leadership skills and outgoing nature not only made her a role model among her peers, but also paved her way to becoming a distinguished professional. She achieved academic excellence with a bachelor's degree from the University of Nuevo León, and further honed her skills with a master's in business from the Science and Technology Institute of Monterrey. Her career trajectory took a significant leap forward when she ventured into the digital sales arena, quickly climbing the ranks to secure a key executive role at the Bilbao Vizcaya Bank of America in the early 1990s. It was during this zenith of her career that Abril's path crossed with Juan Carlos García Sanchez, an ambitious entrepreneur born on November 11, 1968. The two shared more than just a professional background. Juan Carlos, too, was an alumnus of the Science and Technology Institute of Monterrey, graduating with honors in economics. His academic journey also included stints at prestigious U.S. institutions like the University of Pennsylvania and Harvard. Describing himself as a fervent entrepreneur in e-commerce and financial technology, Juan Carlos's passion was palpable. Their shared interests in social circles brought them closer, and they often collaborated on various projects. As their professional relationship flourished, so did their personal connection, blossoming into love. After several years together, they decided to tie the knot in 1994, a union that not only solidified their relationship but also their professional collaborations. They achieved success with ventures like the online stores Pagam Mobile and Plaza.com, and played a pivotal role in founding the Decompress store, which by 1999 had become one of Mexico's top e-commerce platforms. As we explore the remarkable journey of Abril and Juan Carlos, one can't help but wonder about the synergy between personal and professional growth. What do you think contributes more to their success? Shared professional interests or personal compatibility? The couple's life appeared to be a dream come true. Both were thriving in their careers and delighted to work and live alongside each other. Their happiness reached new heights in 2001 when they welcomed their first daughter, Ana Cecilia. 2 years later, their joy expanded with the birth of their son, Juan Carlos Jr., and in 2005, they completed their family with another son, Julio Andrés. Despite Abril's demanding career and numerous work commitments, she always made sure to be present in her children's lives. She took an active role in their upbringing, attending to their needs, participating in school plays, and being there for their assemblies. Those around Abril admired her, often describing her as the perfect mother. Similarly, many believed Juan Carlos was an exemplary father. They were seen as the ideal family, with many wishing they could trade places with them. However, this image was merely a facade. Behind closed doors, the family was enduring a tumultuous period, with everyone suffering from Juan's explosive temper. Juan was an irritable and quick-tempered man who often lashed out at anyone nearby. Initially, it began with verbal abuse. Juan made Abril feel uncomfortable with his hurtful remarks, deeply offending her. Over time, the situation escalated to physical violence, with Juan regularly beating Abril. She tried to conceal this abuse from her friends and family, believing that staying with Juan Carlos was in the best interest of her children. Abril feared she wouldn't be able to provide for her children on her own, so she chose not to leave her husband. By 2009, the situation had deteriorated so much that people around Abril began to suspect something was wrong. Friends and family noticed her depressed demeanor and the bruises on her body. Despite their concerns and pleas for her to divorce Juan, Abril steadfastly insisted on staying with her family. By 2014, Juan Carlos had achieved remarkable success in his career, being named one of the most important figures in Amazon's commerce in Mexico. A year later, his promotion to Amazon's Director of Operations in Mexico necessitated the family's move to Mexico City. Abril hoped that relocating would help resolve their issues, but unfortunately, it did not. Despite the change in scenery, her husband's abusive behavior persisted. He insulted and physically assaulted her nearly every day. Juan Carlos maintained a starkly different public persona, presenting himself as a devoted husband and father, concerned with preserving his good reputation. He frequently shared posts on social media, declaring Abril as the love of his life, yet paradoxically, he was obsessively suspicious of her, going as far as to hire a private detective to monitor her under the baseless accusation of infidelity. Simultaneously, Juan Carlos's professional life thrived. He secured a prestigious role as the director of digital commerce at Electra, a multinational company specializing in commerce and financial services. By 2018, the domestic strife had escalated to an intolerable level. Despite Abril's efforts to maintain her family's unity, a distressing incident during a Christmas holiday trip to Monterrey with her family brought her to a breaking point. In a senseless fit of rage, Juan Carlos accused her of cheating again, based on an innocuous photo sent by the private investigator showing Abril with a male colleague. In his unfounded jealousy, he attempted to strangle her. This alarming episode pushed Abril towards deciding to leave him for good, a decision cemented by January 4, 2019, when they were discussing how to break the news of their impending divorce to their children. That fateful morning, the situation took a violent turn. Abril was awoken by a severe blow to the head, initially mistaking it for an accident, only to realize Juan Carlos had struck her with a baseball bat. In her desperate attempt to escape, her screams alerted their eldest son, then 16, who rushed to her aid. His timely intervention saved her life. Together they escaped the house, seeking immediate medical attention for Abril's severe injuries. This harrowing account not only sheds light on the destructive effects of domestic abuse, but also underscores the importance of recognizing early warning signs and taking preventive measures to protect oneself and loved ones. Through understanding the complexities of abusive relationships and the legal avenues for protection, we aim to educate and empower individuals to safeguard their safety and well-being. After the traumatic events unfolded, while his wife Abril and their son were recovering in the hospital, Juan Carlos turned to social media to vent his frustrations. He published several posts in which he accused Abril of infidelity and financial deceit, alleging she had stolen from him throughout their 26-year marriage. More shockingly, he claimed she had stabbed him in the chest, supporting his accusations with photos of a knife and bloodstains. These posts garnered the attention of his friends, one of whom even made a video to help spread Juan Carlos's side of the story. Among these already bizarre posts, he went a step further, bizarrely announcing Abril's death from his own account, although she was clearly alive, raising questions about his motives. After her hospital release, Abril took immediate legal action against Juan Carlos. She filed a police report, and quickly, the courts awarded her custody of their children. Despite their oldest daughter being legally an adult and capable of independence, she chose to stay with her mother. The courts ordered Juan Carlos to pay a monthly child support of 6,000 Mexican pesos, around $350, an amount insufficient for the upbringing of 2 minors. Faced with financial hurdles and lingering fear of her husband, Abril embraced this challenging new chapter with unwavering optimism, focusing on her children's well-being. Relocating to Monterrey with her children, Abril actively pursued the lawsuit against Juan Carlos and finalized their divorce. The relentless abuse she endured reshaped her outlook, leading her to join a Christian group aimed at family protection and start working as a divorce counselor. Her plans included founding an organization to aid abused women, helping them heal as she did, eventually reaching a point of forgiveness towards her ex-husband. Meanwhile, the legal proceedings against Juan Carlos intensified. 9 months post-attack on September 20th, a criminal case for attempted femicide was lodged against him. The overseeing judge, Federico Mosco, issued an informal pre-trial detention, sending him to the northern prison for several weeks. Juan Carlos contested these decisions, leading to a judicial re-evaluation on November 3, 2019, by the original presiding judge. Subsequently, another judge, Hector Jimenez, reconsidered the reclassification of the crime. Despite evidence including Abril's hospital photos and testimony from her and her son, the judge ruled out attempted feminicide, arguing Juan Carlos lacked lethal intent as evidenced by the non-fatal nature of the attack. This led to the cancellation of the remand and left the remaining hearings shrouded in uncertainty. Distraught by these developments, Abril penned a letter to the judge expressing her fear for her life, though it went unanswered and Juan Carlos remained free. As we delve deeper into this complex narrative, one has to wonder about the justice system's role and its impact on victims like Abril. After being released from prison, a man began a legal battle for custody of his 2 young children. This situation compelled Abril to make frequent trips from Monterrey to Mexico City to attend numerous court hearings. Additionally, she was required to take her children to several psychological evaluations. In his lawsuit, Juan alleged that Abril had poisoned the children's minds against him, claiming this as the reason they readily chose to leave him. Just 1 week before a crucial hearing, Abril sat down with her 3 children for a heartfelt conversation. She encouraged them to chase their dreams and find it within themselves to forgive, subtly hinting at their estranged father. This discussion seemed to be a forewarning, as if Abril sensed an impending tragedy, and she seized the moment to express her profound love for them one last time. On November 25, 2019, Abril traveled to Mexico City for what was to be a pivotal meeting. Coincidentally, that day marked the International Day Against Gender Violence, with thousands of women protesting in the streets. Tragically, following the court session, 48-year-old Abril was fatally shot in the south of the city. After the hearing, Abril and her children, along with their attorney, were en route to the airport in a car, ready to return to Monterrey after fulfilling all legal obligations. At a red traffic light, their car was approached by a motorcyclist. Shockingly, the rider was an assassin who fired 2 shots at Abril, striking her in the head, while her children miraculously remained unharmed in the back seat. Abril was critically injured but alive when she arrived at the hospital. Despite the medical team's best efforts, she succumbed to her injuries 6 hours later. Her legal advisor promptly informed her family of the tragedy, leading her brother Javier to urgently travel to Mexico City to handle the aftermath. This chilling episode highlights the stark realities and dangers that can emerge from custody disputes and domestic issues, serving as a grim chapter in a true crime documentary on the tragic consequences of familial conflicts and systemic violence against women. In the tragic narrative surrounding Juan Carlos, many were convinced of his involvement in a heinous act. Yet the official stance diverged sharply. Law enforcement authorities contended that without clear identification of the shooter and his motives, they couldn't categorize the incident as feminicide, leaving Juan Carlos unarrested and the case classified merely as murder. This classification prompted the police to delve deeper, aiming to amass sufficient evidence to potentially reclassify the crime as feminicide. Amidst this turmoil, a friend of the victim, Abril, voiced her accusations against Juan Carlos on social media. This bold move resulted in the deletion of her account, further igniting the fear among Abril's relatives that justice might elude them. They too turned to social media, striving to spotlight the case, particularly poignant as Abril's death coincided with a day dedicated to combating gender-based violence, thus imbuing her demise with profound significance. The grief-stricken family organized numerous protests and marches advocating for justice for Abril. The online community rallied around these efforts, sparking vigorous discussions about Abril's previously expressed fears and the authorities' apparent disregard for her pleas for protection. Amid a backdrop of sorrow and disillusionment, Abril's loved ones conducted her funeral in Monterrey at the B. Neo Flores Chapel, with a heartfelt requiem mass. During this solemn event, mourners not only paid their respects but also raised vocal demands for justice. The funeral procession later made its way to the Pantheon Garden in Los Angeles for the burial, turning the occasion into a powerful statement against gender violence. This was underscored by the frustrating reality that some perpetrators of violence against women had been acquitted by the courts. Notably, Abril's ex-husband Juan Carlos had been released from prison following appeals and had managed to bring her to Mexico City, where tragically, nothing prevented him from ending her life. In a recent escalation surrounding a high-profile legal debacle in Mexico, the Attorney General's office has initiated a comprehensive investigation against Judges Carlos Trillo Rodriguez, Federico Mosco González, and Hector Jiménez López. The scrutiny stems from their controversial rulings that prematurely freed Juan Carlos, a businessman entangled in severe allegations. This move comes amid public uproar and a push from representatives of former Mexican President Andrés Manuel López Obrador's party within the Chamber of Deputies, advocating for the ousting of Judge Mosco. Mosco had previously sparked controversy by discharging a doctor from charges of violence against a woman in a separate case, resulting only in an accusation of sexual assault. Amid the tumult of the so-called Abril case, Rafael Gara, the president of the Supreme Court of Mexico City, suspended all judges connected to Juan Carlos's release on November 29. Subsequently, Claudia Sheinbaum, Mexico City's head of government, announced the reinvestigation of Abril's tragic demise as a feminicide, suggesting that the implicated judges could face repercussions should evidence prove Juan Carlos as the perpetrator. The case, which has attracted both local and international media attention, revealed that despite compelling evidence against him, the judiciary system released Juan Carlos. In response to the public outcry following Abril's death, her family founded a non-profit named Abril's Voice. This organization aims to provide essential support, legal, psychological, and informational, to those affected by similar acts of violence. Furthermore, public demonstrations have prompted calls for the legal reclassification of the charges against Juan Carlos to attempted murder of women, potentially leading to his rearrest. Adding to the controversy, Juan Carlos himself has taken to social media to declare his willingness to aid the ongoing investigation, asserting his innocence in his wife's tragic fate, despite acknowledging marital discord. His statements have been met with widespread skepticism and dismay across the community. Compounding the family's turmoil, Ana Cecilia, Juan Carlos's 18-year-old daughter, has accused him of long-term physical and psychological maltreatment towards Abril and their children. She substantiated her claims with harrowing images of Abril hospitalized following an assault. Ana Cecilia's poignant accusations paint her father as a narcissistic sociopath whose temporary freedom was allegedly secured through corrupt dealings. This saga, fit for a true crime documentary, continues to unravel, exposing the deep-seated issues within judicial systems and the pervasive challenges victims face in their quest for justice. In the days following a turbulent series of events, authorities finally issued an arrest warrant for Juan Carlos. Interestingly, the warrant wasn't related to the murder case of Abril, which had gripped public attention, but was due to his failure to adhere to court obligations. Juan Carlos had been conditionally released with the mandate to check in weekly, a condition he neglected. Additionally, he was absent from 2 crucial court hearings, prompting Judge Austin Moreno Gaspar to rescind the release order. During one of these missed hearings, a poignant moment occurred when the judge read aloud a letter from Juan Carlos. In this letter, he expressed a deep fear for his safety, claiming this as the reason for his absence. He stated that since the tragic demise of Abril, both he and his loved ones had been the targets of severe death threats. Juan Carlos believed that attending the hearing would expose him to potential acts of vengeance. He also maintained his innocence in the letter, asserting that his conscience was clear regarding Abril's death. Despite his claims, Judge Gaspar was not persuaded and thus issued the arrest warrant, also imposing a travel ban on Juan. As this legal drama unfolded, the probe into Abril's death pressed on, with authorities more determined than ever to uncover the full truth. Amidst this investigation, a letter Juan Carlos had written to the authorities was leaked to the media. In it, he vehemently denied any involvement in Abril's death. He recounted the events of that fateful morning, claiming that it was Abril who first escalated their conflict by stabbing him with a knife. According to Juan, his retaliatory strike with a bat was his first act of resistance, and he vehemently denied any intent to kill her. This letter sparked widespread outrage and skepticism. Despite Juan's narrative, the investigation solidified his status as the prime suspect in Abril's murder, also revealing the involvement of at least 7 other individuals in the crime. The complexities of this case raise numerous questions. What do you think about Juan Carlos's claims of self-defense? Do you believe his fear of attending the hearing was genuine, or a strategic maneuver to evade legal repercussions? How do you interpret the involvement of multiple suspects in this case? Share your thoughts and theories below. After closely examining surveillance footage from the area where the tragic events unfolded, it became evident that as soon as the woman exited the courthouse, 2 cars immediately pursued her. The drivers of these cars were coordinating with the hitman who executed the fatal shot. Surveillance videos captured the hitman and the 2 vehicles hastily retreating to a medics colony in Mexico City following the assault. At that stage, the identities of the pursuers and the hitman remained unknown, yet the ongoing investigation suggested Juan Carlos's possible involvement in the orchestration of the crime. It was hypothesized that Juan Carlos had encountered these men during his time in prison, paying one of them for protection. After their release, and subsequently his own, it is believed he compensated them to murder Abril. Crucially, Juan Carlos alone was privy to the precise itinerary of Abril's movements within Mexico City, as he had orchestrated the scheduling of their meetings and court appearances. Upon these revelations, no legal team was prepared to defend him. Furthermore, Abril's relatives, friends, and colleagues cooperated fully with law enforcement, providing extensive information to facilitate his capture. Nevertheless, developments took a dramatic turn when it was disclosed by sources within the country's Attorney General's office that Juan Carlos had fled Mexico. He reportedly escaped by crossing into the United States. In response, Mexican authorities promptly alerted Interpol, which issued a global notification. Consequently, Juan Carlos became a target for law enforcement across over 151 countries, with a concerted effort to apprehend him at any cost. Progress in the Abril case was painstakingly slow, with the first arrests only occurring months later. On March 5, 2020, Mexico's Secretary General of Security, Mr Garcia Haro, announced the arrest of 2 individuals linked to the incident. The detainees were Juan Carlos Rodriguez Ortiz and Rodolfo Daniel B. Dara Sandal, also known as Chango Leon. Rodriguez Ortiz was identified as the driver who effectively shielded the hitman, while Dara Sandal was pinpointed as the shooter. Both were subsequently charged as suspects in the case. In a chilling chapter of a true crime documentary, The arrest of two individuals 7 months following initial detentions unfolded dramatically. The ongoing investigation revealed the sinister network led by Juan Carlos Maldonado, known as Juan Balta, a notorious gang leader in Mexico City. On October 28, authorities closed in on two more of Balta's associates, Oscar, nicknamed El Oso, and Alejandro, known as El Carnal. During the arrest, police discovered 182 doses of cocaine in El Oso's possession at his residence, along with 300 rounds of large-caliber ammunition, a firearm, and 9 bags of illicit substances. Meanwhile, El Carnal was apprehended with his 33-year-old mistress, Magda Carina. Their capture yielded 3 bags of illegal substances, a firearms magazine, a long gun, and a scale for measuring drugs, highlighting the depth of their criminal activities. The backstory of violence and betrayal deepened with revelations from the judiciary. Juan Carlos, another central figure, had previously orchestrated an assault on his ex-wife, Abril, using a bat, a crime for which he was initially released due to judicial oversight. However, the relentless pursuit of justice by Abril's relatives led to the re-evaluation of his case. After substantial public outcry and protests, the Judicial Council took action against the judges who had allowed his early release, temporarily suspending them from their duties. As the case continued to unravel, it emerged that Juan Carlos and Juan Balta had formed a formidable alliance in prison. Balta, offering protection in exchange for financial support, continued to receive funds from Juan Carlos after their release. This dark alliance was believed to have led to the plotting against Abril's life, marking a sinister turn in the narrative. The culmination of these efforts by law enforcement and judicial authorities came on March 19, 2021, when a judge overturned previous rulings on the January 2019 attack on Abril, reclassifying it as attempted murder. This significant judicial shift came after intense advocacy by her relatives and persistent petitions from the prosecutor's office, emphasizing the severity of the crime and the need for accountability in the harrowing saga of criminality and corruption. 2 months later, on May 23, the authorities apprehended the final suspects in the murder case of Abril. The operation led to the arrest of 3 women and 1 man. The judge had issued 3 search warrants and 8 arrest warrants that morning. A statement released jointly by the Ministry of Civil Security detailed the arrests. In the first raid, 48-year-old Amato Vente Rodriguez was taken into custody. Found in his possession were a short-barreled firearm, 2 magazines, 73 functional cartridges, 9 cell phones, 53 assorted watches, various pieces of jewelry, computers, cash, counterfeit passports, Idaho cards, driver's licenses, phone chips, and a plastic bag containing illegal substances. During a subsequent search at the Garden de Morelos colony, authorities arrested 34-year-old Mabel Montiel Moreno and, at a different site, 48-year-old Graciela Alicia Flores Valdez. Both women had multiple cell phones confiscated. The latest arrest occurred at Florida Mayor Alvaro Oberon's colony in Mexico City, where 50-year-old Aisha Jalil Castillo, also known as Aguera or Alvar's godmother, was detained. By this time, 9 gang members had been captured, 7 of whom were directly linked to Abril's murder. The only individual still at large was Juan Carlos, prompting authorities to issue a renewed public alert. Attorney General Ernestina Godoy stated that the initial alert was for attempted feminicide, but now a new alert was issued following the confirmation of Abril's murder. However, despite intensive search efforts, months elapsed without any sign of Juan. During this period, an unexpected turn occurred when a man known as Rulo, also called El Chango Leon, came forward to the authorities. Under interrogation, he confessed to being the actual perpetrator who fatally shot Abril. He revealed that he was compelled to commit the murder after Juan Carlos offered him $110,000. According to Rulo, Juan Carlos orchestrated the murder from behind bars, providing Rulo with Abril's address and detailed instructions for the crime while still in pre-trial detention. Juan Carlos had informed Rulo that the necessary weapons would be available in Monterrey. Rulo traveled there in anticipation, but after several days without any contact, he returned to Mexico City, having not heard anything further about the weapons or from Juan Carlos until after the latter's release from prison. Once out, Juan Carlos reached out to Rulo again, altering the initial plan. He now insisted that Abril's life be taken in Mexico City, having managed to lure her there himself. What do you think about the twisted paths this case took? In a charged courtroom setting, the family lawyer of Abril posed a significant question to El Chango Leon, alias Rodolfo Daniel Banderas, during his interrogation. "Do you have anything to say to the victim's family?" he asked. El Chango Leon, remorseful, admitted his guilt and extended his apologies to his own family members, including his brothers and sons. In an intriguing twist, Juan Carlos Rodriguez Ortiz disclosed he was paid 5,000 Mexican pesos, approximately $300, by a man named Juan Carlos, even before the details of the crime were laid out to him. Due to procedural limitations within the Metropolitan Court system, the case was fragmented into separate hearings. The initial trial targeted only the direct perpetrators, Rodolfo Daniel Banderas and Juan Carlos Rodriguez, with future proceedings planned for the other accused. The legal proceedings began in August 2022. Throughout the trial, the prosecution brought forward 28 witnesses and introduced 14 pieces of expert evidence. El Changoleon recounted his meticulous planning and execution of the crime during the trial, reaffirming his guilty plea. On May 19, 2023, the verdict was delivered. Both Rodolfo Daniel Banderas and Juan Carlos Rodriguez were convicted of femicide and sentenced to 52 years in prison. Additionally, they were ordered to compensate with 560,000 Mexican pesos, around $3,200. Following the sentencing, they were transported to the Oriente Detention Center to begin their sentences. The aftermath of the trial saw Abril's family voicing dissatisfaction with the sentence for Rulo, who was the actual shooter. They vowed to appeal, seeking a harsher penalty. Meanwhile, in October 2014, a decision to conduct separate trials for 4 other defendants, Juan Carlos Maldonado, Juan Balta, Alejandro, El Carnal, Amad Vente Rodriguez, and Graciela Alicia Flores, was made. This decision, later appealed by prosecutors, was criticized for potentially causing delays and incurring excessive costs, as each defendant would need to appear in court multiple times. As of January 2024, no new sentencing updates have emerged. It's been 4 years since Abril's tragic death, and the pursuit of justice continues. Her children, now residing with their uncles on the outskirts of Mexico City, remain hopeful for justice. Amidst these ongoing legal battles, one question lingers heavily in the air. Where is Juan Carlos, the alleged mastermind? His capture remains a crucial task for the authorities. Abril's family, steadfast in their resolve, pledges to continue their quest for justice until he is apprehended and convicted. What are your thoughts on the justice system's handling of this case? Do you think the separate trials for the defendants are justified, or do they undermine the pursuit of justice? Thank you for joining us as we delved into the complex and heart-wrenching story of Abril Pérez Sagaón. Today's episode highlighted not only the personal tragedy of Abril, but also shed light on broader systemic issues within our criminal justice and societal norms. As we reflect on the challenges faced by Abril and the myriad victims of domestic abuse who suffer in silence, it is crucial for us to understand the mechanisms of the law, the intricacies of criminal behavior, and the power of community awareness in preventing such tragedies. Educating ourselves and others about the signs of abuse, the legal rights of the victims, and the available resources for help can make a substantial difference. How might our community better support individuals trapped in cycles of violence? What steps can be taken to improve the responsiveness of our legal system to these urgent situations?